distinguished delegates, we are now ready to start our discussion. Participants are welcome to ask questions or make comments on the presentations they have heard. We shall take a few comments and questions from the audience at a time. Then our speakers will have the opportunity to respond, and we shall continue like this. Please identify yourselves at the beginning and make your interventions as brief as possible because time is limited. First, I have the pleasure to give the floor to Ms. Arlene Clemesha, one of our invited experts for Plenary I, who has kindly agreed to act as a discussant to break the ice with a few observations and perhaps also take one or two questions. You have the floor.
Real involvement of the world in resolving these obstacles. So what can be a real an example? I felt the need of an example from your part of a real attitude from the international community to deal with real problems. Okay? To Mr. Shasham, yes, I was wondering what pieces now, what your organization's position is on Avigdor Lieberman's plan, which he has been talking about in the last 2 years, of population transfer of Palestinians out of Israel in any kind of possible, not very probable, but possible agreement. Also because there are some intellectuals, historians, such as, although I know that they're not the same thing, Lieberman puts his idea as in one framework, and like Benny Morris's position is another, different. But in some ways, they communicate very much. And Benny Morris speaks about also the possibility and maybe even the need of a transfer of population of Palestinians out of Israel, given, some kind of conflict situation that might be a need. He speaks openly about this, as if it were absolutely normal. So I'd like to hear the position of your organization on that, because you spoke about how it is important to take settlers out of the West Bank. And however, if that is like one thing, it's absolutely different from expelling more people, right? So I won't go on with it. I'd please like to hear what your organization publicly says, because you're in Israel, you're leading with your government at this moment, right? And to Adriana Mabilia, please, I hope the media does not get tired of repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating everything that you said here today. I know how difficult it is. And so I'd just like to ask you about the criminalization of the victim that you mentioned, like it was in the back of your speech. If this is something that you notice is improving in Brazilian media. I mean, if the criminalization of the victim of Palestinians, if it is improving or not. I don't know. I'd like to hear your opinion. Okay, and to Mr. Burnett, thank you very much also for your wonderful film. I do hope to see you again in Brazil soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before turning it back to our panelists, I would like to collect one or two more questions. I have a request from Mr. Kaufman. You have the floor, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. I have a question for Mr. Assali. Another one, for Mrs. Mabilia. I wonder if you could elaborate about the importance of trying to work with the Arab and Palestinian diaspora in the U.S. together with the Jewish diaspora. I'm very familiar with your excellent work. I teach at the University of Maryland and at Haifa at times. I'm concerned that although there is a very close cooperation between J Street and the Palestinian Task Force, there is a strong cooperation. Why is it not possible, is it possible to have like something we're trying to do in South America, which is like, we call it Cousins Clubs, inspired actually by Arabs and Jews in Irvine that were working together for peace. I wonder whether you think it's counterproductive or not possible to have members of the Arab community and the Jewish community, or more specifically the Palestinian community, that share the same values of human rights, democracy, and peace, to have, in addition to your organization, some joint organization to show that the diasporas can make a contribution to peace. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about it. And to Mrs. Mabilia, I wonder, I've been hearing very painful comments about occupation. I am very concerned. I've been the chair of B'Tselem. I'm very concerned of the impact of occupation on human rights in Israel and everything else. But I wonder whether there were no self-critical comments at all, because what you have been reading has been mostly blaming not the victim, obviously, but the victimizer. But I know from personal knowledge, Palestinians with whom I work and write, that have been also looking introspectively and have been expressing some self-criticism, which I wonder why it didn't come up in your interviews.
Thank you, sir. I'd now like to give the floor to the representative of Brazil.
Disclaimer here, so I will not speak this afternoon on behalf of my country, but rather in an individual position. So the position of Brazil has been delivered by the ambassador this morning, and it's known by many. But this will not stop this secretary and the embassy of Quito from participating in this very stimulating debate. So first I'd like to thank Mr. Emad Bourmat for his coming here, his presentation, and most of all his movie. I wish to tell you that I am indeed a different person after I watched that movie. So this is right. I thank you, and I think you have one of the most powerful weapons in this fight. And I believe it should be deployed, since weapons are to be deployed to stay in military terms, deployed more and more often around the world. I couldn't fail to recognize the Brazilian flag in several moments in that movie, and I'm filled with joy that our joy and the soccer story is also part of the joy of the Palestinians, so thank you. Going to the presentations of Mr. Asali and Mr. Shashan, I think maybe one point that is that comes out of those two presentations, maybe it was not so highlighted in the presentation of Mr. Asali, is that it looks like that one of the two sides, despite whatever it says publicly, does not want or does not believe in the two-state solution. So, and despite changes in internal politics in Israel, we can see from the presentations that the policy has been for more than 20 years to play for time, meanwhile doing the utmost to make that solution impossible in the field. So if we believe this is true, and irrespective of ideological currents within Israel, that there is a state that does not want or does not believe in this solution despite what it says, what should be done? So I would like to thank Mr. Shasham for the optimistic notes at the end of your presentation, mostly about internal changes of public opinion in Israel. But if we look at the past 20 years, there may be reason for more skepticism that real change would come from the inside. So we still have to look for change from the outside. And then we have, as many have stressed here, the role of the international community. And the change from the outside would be to change the incentive structure for Israel so that it is led to have an interest in the two-state solution. So if it does not have an interest now because it does not believe it serves its interests, there should be consequences, as Ambassador said, to change that incentive structure and so that Israel starts to consider that it's in their best interest to go really for the two-state solution. On the basis of those comments, I have two concrete questions for the panelists in general, so whoever wants to answer. The first, am I exaggerating in my skepticism? Is it true that the State of Israel, the mainstream, the outcome of whatever political process does not want to achieve a two-state solution and is playing for time? Am I exaggerating? This is one. Two, if the international community has to work to change the structure of incentives to Israel, it's hardly we can think this can be done without America, so the United States. And my question is, what is the outlook for the United States to take this step and go beyond mediating to really working to change this incentive structure for the State of Israel? Thank you.
Thank you. I now have the pleasure to give the floor to Mr. O. Al-Kadur. You have the floor, sir.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. I'll be speaking in Spanish so I can be more precise with my question. For Mr. Shasham, the Peace Now movement. Sure. So, with regard to the Peace Now movement, how can you translate the action of the movement? How do you translate it into political action? Because there was great clarity in your presentation. You showed us the representation in the Knesset, and at the same time, I would like to look at one step before that. So there are leaders that participate in the Peace Now movement and other types of movements as well. And the idea being to move ahead with this vision, a vision with which many of us share, moving toward political action with this vision. How does that translate? How does that work?
Thank you. And I'd now like to give the floor to Mr. Charbel.
Thank you very much. I would like to salute you all, delegates. And first, talking to Ahmad, I'm always very happy to watch your movie because it's a very sad movie, but that gives me a lot of strength, personally speaking. And I believe I can speak in the name of all Latin Americans here that it really touches us and helps us to keep going our own struggles. And I would like to recall all indigenous people that still suffers a lot in our Latin America, and unfortunately in Brazil we don't have much left of it. And I hope that will not be the case with the indigenous people of Palestine. So I thank you very much for your contribution. Since the panel now is about the situation on the ground and the possibilities and obstacles for peace, I would just like to add something, because I believe we have stood within the frame of the West Bank, and the question of Palestine is more than the West Bank. We're talking about 20% of Palestinians living inside Israel. We're talking about more than 5 million refugees living outside the historical Palestine. So we should also have that in mind when you talk about the situation on the ground. And adding, and I'll come back to the Palestinians living inside Israel in my question to Mr. Sashman, but adding to the situation inside the West Bank precisely, I would like to take the chance, since we are in the International Week and Solidarity in the question of water in Palestine. I don't know if you're aware of this. There is an international campaign trying to raise awareness about the water issue in Palestine. I would like to bring this some data that I believe that was missing. We referred to the illegality of the settlement and its expansion, to the wall, and to the violations during demonstrations, but we haven't talked about what the European Parliament Commission has classified as water apartheid, a very strong term, but unfortunately it describes very well what happens with the different water systems that are now set in the West Bank. And briefly, just to point one data, today a settler in the Jordan Valley expends 81 times more water than a Palestinian living in the West Bank. So this number is a very profound number. And now referring to my questions, Mr. Azali has talked, has mentioned the initiatives of the Europeans and some other countries that today are putting actual pressure in this matter. And one of the ways is now relating to the water issue, and it has a name. There's a specific pressure on a specific company responsible for this that is now the target of this international campaign, why we are talking here, and that is Mihrot, a water company that is responsible for this water system. So I would just like to address these points in the West Bank. My questions to Mr. Sashin, referring to the Palestinians living inside Israel. There are 20% of the population, and some of them living in unrecognized villages that face a lot of the problems that Palestinians in the West Bank live. I'm just going to mention Al-Rakib, a village in the south of Israel that has been demolished more than 150 times, and it's inside Israel. So the process we're talking about, the daily struggle that Emad has referred to, and the Palestinians have a very beautiful word for that, sumud, it's also happening inside Israel. So I would like to hear from Sashman, how is your discussions in peace now relating to this population? And you referred to this opinion research that more than half of the population in Israel supports the two-state solution. But I believe in the same public opinion research, it also showed that more than half of the Israeli population is against the Palestinians inside Israel having the same rights as the Israelis. So how would that be a final solution? And not only for the Palestinians, but also for the African migrants living inside Israel, if they're not Jews, in this framework that you mentioned. And for Mr. Azali, I would just ask about the refugees, because you mentioned that the Palestinians should also forget about some places that today are inside Israel, but how to deal with the issue of the refugees that have a right that our international law have given to them, and we cannot take that away from them, to return to their homes that are today inside Israel. So how to deal with this? And I believe this is not a question to be postponed. This is a very present question, since it is international law and has been defined. Thank you.
The conflict goes to media when Palestinians attack Israel. Because, of course, it's not the ideal thing, but Israel attacks Palestinians every day. So media, forget that. Media leaves that on the side. It's true. So when a Palestinian attacks Israel, it becomes news. So in this way, it seems for those who are not involved with the subject, for common people, it gives the impression that Palestinians are more violent than Israelis. So in this way it happens. Mr. Kaufman, could you repeat your question, please? Excuse me.
I was listening to the many testimonies that you provided.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems to me that rightly they were blaming the victimizer. However, I am familiar with the Palestinian colleagues of all kinds, academics in particular, who are also looking introspectively and self-critical of certain things. Surely differentiating between Hamas behavior from the PLO behavior to start with, but also within the PLO and the Palestinian Authority, there is some criticism that I didn't find it expressed in your testimonies. Maybe I didn't hear well. So I was wondering, did you collect testimonies also, not only blaming the victimizer, but also their own behavior?
You are criticizing their behavior, you mean?
I'm not criticizing anything. I'm only asking if you had a chance, were you seeking or looking for some comments that are self-critical, introspective? I hear lots of comments that are introspective and self-critical.
Yeah, of course, that I got a lot of comments, yeah? Among them, there are some, when you are a journalist and you will start talking to a person, the beginning of the conversation is different from the end. At the end of the conversation, the person is open, yeah, and at this moment is the right moment when the person really speaks what she's feeling. Yeah, when you turn off the microphone is the moment when you listen to the most important things of the people. Yeah, these three people here that I interviewed, they are from West Bank. They live in West Bank, Ramallah, Bethlehem, in Al-Masra, near Bethlehem.
I'm not going to insist in a dialogue. I was wondering why you did not report about self-critical comments. That's what I was asking.
About
this conference.
About critical comments?
Self-critical comments. Autocritical.
About Palestinian criticizing themselves. Yeah. Of course, we can talk about it, yeah, but I was trying here to talk about the problems they are facing because of the occupation. Yeah, I mean, I understand that you are saying that the occupation is, they are guilty for the occupation.
Please. I say the victimizer,
excuse me.
The victimizer is the main factor.
Excuse me. Please let her reply. Okay, and then I would like to move on because we are very short of time. So conclude your.
No, it's concluded. It's concluded.
And then we'll move on to Mr. Bonner.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have concluded.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Bonner.
Thank you very much. This is the first time I'm happy that the film and my introduction gave you enough about to know and to change or to be moved or touched, to know more about the Palestinian story and our struggle. And this is the first time that no questions for me. I love when people ask me questions, so so I just want to thank my friend, the Brazilian Charbel, for mentioning the problems of the water, our problems. It's really very sensitive problem, the water and the refugees. And I want to comment about our friend Brazilian speech. And I want to thank you again. As someone who lives in the West Bank under the occupation, and I was following for a long time, all my life, the political situation. If you go back 20 years or before, I've been following the situation and living the experience, and I felt how the situation is changing, but not for good. Worse. Every year is worse and worse. And so I feel that, like other Palestinians who live there, it's not the same thing when you just hear about the situation and the conflict and the political situation or the negotiations, and it's not serious. For me and for many Palestinians, it's not serious. And I want to tell you that they are not, the Israeli side does not doing enough to make peace, and they are not interested of giving liberty or freedom to our people, because the fact on the ground, this is very good example, to confiscate more land and to build more settlements and to arrest people and to kill, and they just play it that they negotiate and making peace. So for me and for many Palestinians, it's the same feeling.
Thank you. Now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Azari, who I think has the longest shopping list.
Thank you very much. First, on the issue that you could get the world international community sink its teeth and do something. The obvious one was what we just mentioned, everybody, the settlement products, labeling, and new punishments. There's a shopping list here of what the international community would want to do. There are restrictions on travel, on the Palestinians, on businesses. There are restrictions on the economic activities across the board, building institutions across the board. They can pick and choose anything they want and protect it. Just say, okay, we want to protect the sector of education. Israel, don't block these things. And if you do, we might have other ideas. A nebulous general idea of, we want to be supportive doesn't do anything. In general, this is just about human nature, not just about Israel. People do respond to pressure, as they do respond to incentives. So I think that sort of thing is good. On the issue of the diaspora, Arabs and Jews getting together and working together as partners, it's a lofty idea and a wonderful one if it does work. There are too many obstacles to implementing it. First off, we, as our own organization, we took a fundamental decision when we started, which is not to take sides amongst Jewish organizations. Just they can agree with each other, they can fight with each other, whatever they please. They will not count on us on being in your camp. We discuss issues. We do programs with all of them. But the programs have to be fitting in our own view of things, the two-state solution, and where it would be helpful politically. Having a big umbrella organization, we ourselves, even with this very what I think is a responsible policy, get criticized left and right by people who say, you work with the Jews and this and that. Well, we have enough to do with that, I think. But it is a good idea to start a public conversation about this. One of my preferred activities is to co-edit an op-ed or something with one of the, but there's always a price tag to that. It's not easy. This is not as bad as the price tag that the Israelis inflict on the Palestinians, with Ku Klux Klan type of thing. You mentioned something about, the implications of what we say is that Israel is not serious about peace. And we just kind of all pretend to be polite maybe, but will we tell the truth? Here's the thing. Israel needs a Palestinian state, in our opinion. If it wants a Jewish state, Jewish democratic state. It needs a Palestinian state to keep its own identity. Now, there are some people in Israel who believe that, understand that, and some others who don't. So this is a struggle inside of Israel. We like to think that we and the international community should be part of that struggle, rather than say, well, they're either good or bad. It's not that. Some of them, see it this way strategically, and some of them don't. So also in any community there are differences. So in our own community, some people still want to have to reclaim the whole of Palestine, and I could answer that in a minute. I will come to it. But I think this is connected with what the United States, with what's happening in the United States. 70% of Jewish Americans are for a two-state solution. 70%. What do you think the organized Jewish community as a whole, where does it stand on this issue? Okay. I think that view is underrepresented in the organized Jewish community. So it is our duty, everybody's duty, to have that 70% more engaged in expressing its political preferences and connect with Israel and the relations with Israel. Peace Now has a perfect example of this. There is an American Peace Now movement, which is a cousin maybe, or even brother, I don't know, it's close. It's close, so it is possible. It is possible. Connecting that with how we perceive things, we function in the United States with the full knowledge that we are Americans. We are Americans, first-class citizens. We are absolutely entitled to think the way we want, to free associate, and to try and impact policy in the way we see fit. Now, you are all lucky, by the way, in this continent, that you are actually first-class American citizens, first-class citizens in your own countries. So you can do the very same thing. People can do the very same thing here and organize in order to support the political. In the United States, we have clear opposition, forceful, powerful opposition. We have to contend with that. It's a fact. Now, we could take it on frontally. In a very simplistic way, you are, against. And that's kind of, I think, we have a long record of failure on that. But we can take them on by real conversations, real engagement on issues. And I'm telling you, with the 10 years of our existence in this arena, we have absolutely found that there are openings, many openings, with the Jewish community who see the things the same way. When I say the same way, what I mean? The defense security intelligence establishment in Israel is for two-state solution. Now, does anybody think that in this audience, these people understand the strategic disaster that is heading towards Israel, or Israel is heading to, if they continue with this. So it's not just the well-motivated, moral, peace now kind of guys. It's the hard-headed security guys. So there's something like that in the United States and elsewhere. The thing is, I don't care if they don't like me and want to give me a state. Frankly, it doesn't matter whatsoever. If they want to do it for their own good, great. If they want to do it because they hate me, just as great. So there are grounds to agree on a two-state solution, even amongst people who don't agree on anything else, philosophically or morally. I like to think, personally, that the best position we can possibly take, all of us, is the highest moral ground. We have a perfect case. We haven't been perfect attorneys, unfortunately. Talking about the attorneys. We haven't done a very good job. It's a perfect case, really, but we have messed it up with actions that we have taken and continue to take. Now, can the international community do something without America? This is now an integrated village globally. The mayor is still in America, I think, and will be for some time to come. And the good news is that we don't have to give up on America at all. It would be, in fact, one more malpractice. Look at what Kerry is trying to do. Okay, That's America, and he's the Secretary of State. So, and there are many people. Instead of assuming that America is a closed chapter and it's run by AIPAC, which is, okay, you want to simplify life for yourselves and make it easy so you don't yourself work, please be my guest. But if you want to work, there are openings, and there are openings in America. And I think the international community could do a lot to help America. I personally am of the opinion that the Europeans are becoming helpful, not in what they do over there, but in their impact on American politics. This is a power to the good. I invite all Latin America to do the very same thing. And I think you guys are very positioned, and you have so much to offer in this thing. Only I don't think you felt sufficiently inclined. And everybody conceded to America. I like for people to concede to America. I'm an American. I want to be empowered. But there's America and America and America. And I think this is a very important point. Now, on the point of water, I think it is one point that the international community can pick up very seriously. There's been recently an agreement signed between the Palestinians, Jordanians, and Israelis about water. It reflected the power relation between the three parties. Let me leave it at that. But there is much that can be done with water. On the refugees, how do we talk about the West Bank as if it is the whole thing? Of course it's not the whole thing. And that's why they're negotiating. That's one of the main stumbling blocks of the negotiation. The failure to proceed is because there are more than the West Bank issues at stake, including the issue of the refugees. First off, I'm a refugee. I think this is one statement not too many people can make. And a lot of people can claim they are descendants of refugees, but I am the real article. I was there when we left. I was a kid. I remember Jerusalem. We are refugees from Jerusalem to Jerusalem. We left from Tel Piot to rent a home in Sheikh Jarrah. So I don't feel like, I need to prove my attachment to the refugee issue. It's my life. Okay. We need to find what the Arab initiative said is just agreed upon solution. Just agreed upon solution means that Israel has to agree. That's exactly what it translates. Yeah, it has to agree. So let's find a formula where they have to agree. If you find a way, if you found the celestial power to force Israel to do something about it, well, feel free to do it. Short of that, it has to be an agreed solution. And I think there are many ways to do it. I think the Geneva initiative offered some very, very reasonable grounds for that. Sorry, I took so long.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, Mr. Sisha.
Yeah, the last name is Shacham, but I don't expect you to know how to pronounce it. It's very hard. You can call me my first name, Yaniv. It's easier. First of all, about Lieberman, it's a very simple question about his idea of transfer of population. The answer is, of course, peace now. We're against it. It's pure racism, what he's suggesting. We remind him every time when he says that of the Declaration of Independence of Israel, where it says out loud there the equal rights to every citizen, no matter the gender, the nationality, and the religion. So we just suggest go practice that. That's Israel, and that's what the majority of the Israeli citizens. They're not as loud as the extremists, and Lieberman will say anything. So I would put that in proportion. And we even heard some pragmatic ideas from him about this agreement now. So he said that about the 300,000 Palestinians that need to be transferred. I think that even he knows deep inside that there's no chance this would be accepted by anyone in Israel, first of all, and of course by the international community. There is no deal to such a racist idea. And of course it's against also not a declaration of independence, it's also against the moral of us as ethical moral, even as a Jewish people, that's against everything we represent. To the second question about the skepticism for change, and maybe the solution should come from outside. Well, we believe in Peace Now that the change should be from giving hope to the people. We're trying to talk about the politics of hope. That also goes to what President Obama said in his speech to the Israeli public, which got tremendous effect. You know, about surveys and polls, people say that 75% of the Israeli public supported most of his speech, even talking about hard things and actions Israel might have to take. So I think when we talk to the Israeli people, and I think it's also some suggestion to the diplomat to talk to the Israeli people, they have to skip the leadership. They have to skip the government. They have to talk to the people and not talk to the Israeli public about the consequences and what will happen. They have to tell them, think of the possibilities. Think of the opportunities that you will have, like the Arab initiative. Think of what will happen to Israel. Your economy will burst. You'll be a successful nation. You could host the soccer games you wish to host, the European or even the Olympics. And all the ambassadors will go to Jerusalem. Now the ambassadors, you know, of the whole nations are not in Jerusalem. Think of that. So if you tell the Israeli public more about the possibilities and not about the consequences, I think they will learn to trust and believe in this peace and start pressuring the leadership. Yes, as I said in my presentation, the Israeli public is pessimistic. They had some terrible experience. We know what happened after the disengagement from Gaza. A lot of people gave them that very much hope, and they saw what happened, so now they say, okay, we don't want to do that. But when you talk to the senses, you talk to their emotions, they understand that the only way of Israel to survive as a Jewish and a democratic nation is to go for a two-state solution. And we have to keep on mentioning it. And it goes also to the third question about how we translate our actions into change, into our activities into action. And I think that although the situation, we've succeeded pretty, not bad, I would say, in some levels, through our 36 years of activities, because we used to say two states for two peoples when no one would hear about it. And we were considered lunatics and crazy, and when the representatives of Peace Now in the peace camp went to speak to the PLO and to Yasser Arafat before the Israeli government spoke with them, they saw peace people from the peace camp as traitors or as very extremist. And now everyone in Israel understands that this is the solution. Every prime minister has mentioned it. If you check and go and see the speeches of Prime Minister Sharon and Olmert and Netanyahu, all are people from the right wing. And people like Livni and Meridor, they all accepted that sentence, and now they're saying it as though they were lefties from Peace Now. So we're pretty sure that we have to keep on going with this activities, keep on doing the research and showing to the public and to the media what is happening on the ground. But this is the way to make our activities into action and keep up the pressure for peace, and also a little bit optimism of what happened in the last elections. As I said, we have the Lapid party with 19 parliament members and all standing behind him. This is now the second party in Israel. And he's always saying, yeah, we have to withdraw, we have to sign an agreement, and he won't stay. I don't believe that he will stay or Livni will stay in the government if they see that these talks collapse and we're heading into the destruction or some very damage to Israel. The isolation, the delegitimization of Israel, that's something to be aware of. And those people are responsible, although, as I said, they're not as loud as the far-right extremists. I hope I didn't skip any questions. I have yours, I think, at the last, is the one about the Israeli Arabs, Arab Israelis, if I heard you right. Yeah, I will agree this is a problem. A lot of people, we are at a democratic recession in Israel. A lot of legislations, a lot of hatred, a lot of parties growing, like Lieberman, like some Likud members, spreading hatred, spreading racism, and by that way gaining support. And we have a struggle on that. We have to understand that we are a lot of people in Israel that are against that and won't let that happen. And another thing about the Israeli society, we're a very complex society. You know, everyone's talking about the Arab, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. But there is a conflict inside Israel between religious and non-religious and Orthodox. People came on the streets just to fight against the Israeli Orthodox for them not participating in the efforts in the army, etc. And we have tremendous conflict between the lower class. We have 1 million Israelis living under the, how do you call it, the poverty piece, thank you. And this could bring a real struggle and fight to Israel. So I think once we'll gain peace, and once we'll put this main issue behind us, Israel will have to deal with itself and see how it solves its problem between rich and poor, between religious and Orthodox, and of course between Arabs and Jews. This is part of the Israeli society, which is very complex to understand, but I'm optimistic about all of these things. But first of all, that's why I'm in peace now, because I believe that this is the first and foremost, most important thing. We have to find a solution for this. We have to make peace, and after that we'll have a long struggle also making the relationship with the Palestinians much better. It will take time, like it took time with the Egyptians and with the Jordan. We're having a long years of peace with the Egyptians, but still there's no trust between the two nations. It takes time. So it will take time and decades. Maybe our children and grandchildren will start to live as good neighbors, but after that will happen, we'll also have to deal with our Israeli society.
Thank you. I'm afraid we've run out of time, but before concluding the session, I would like to invite our distinguished experts in 60 seconds to make any concluding comments if they so wish.
If I may, just one thing that I think is important in a serious way is it is possible, and we can do it. And our biggest deficit is confidence that we can do it. And if we leave it alone, it won't be done. And if we even leave it to governments, with all due respect, you know, all the ambassadors, it's not enough. They also need help. So I think there is much to do, and I think we can do it in somebody's lifetime.
Yeah, first of all, I enjoyed very much speaking to you, and I'll be happy to answer more questions outside today and tomorrow. I have some maps left if anyone wants of the West Bank. We produce these maps all along the year and publish them. And just remember, there are a lot of Israelis like me. I'm just one here, but we are a very big group. And we have hope, and we need sometimes to show even the people that are skeptic that the international community is also supportive of Israel. I love my country. I hate the occupation. I criticize daily my government, but I love my country and I want to see it succeed and living in peace with the Palestinians. And I know there are many, many Israelis like me, so thank you very much for today.
Thank you. This concludes our first plenary session. On behalf of the committee, I would like to express our deep appreciation to the distinguished speakers for their contributions. Many thanks also go to our discussant, to all those participants who contributed to a very rich discussion, and to all of you for your interest and attention.